And it's going to be a gorgeous day today here in southeast Georgia. Lots of sunshine with a high of around 80 degrees. The Audubon river level is at 8.7 feet and rising. It is now time for the world-famous Butch and Bob Show, brought to you by Mike Birch Ford in Blackshear, by Jessup Premium Stores, located out here on the Waycross Highway, and by Murphy Builder Supply, located on Northeast Broad Street in downtown Jessup. Bob, we got a special guest in this morning here on the Butch and Bob Show.
Yes, we keep telling people we're bringing as many politicians and people running for political office as we possibly can. It's been a big week this week with Mike Roberts and Farrell Cooksey on Tuesday and Wednesday. Today we're focusing on a state representative race, which is contested in our area. Bill Workhouser, the incumbent, being challenged by Delvis Dutton, and Delvis is in the studio talking about his campaign. Delvis, always good to see you. Appreciate you coming in.
Absolutely. Appreciate y'all having me.
Tell us why you threw your hat in this race.
Well, I tell you, it didn't come easy. Everyone that was asking back home, I told them that if anyone from these counties signed up, that I would most likely support them, and kept pushing others to consider it. And as it got a little closer, the heat got turned up a little bit, and I finally told some supporters of mine in the past that if no one signed up, I would sign up the last day of qualifying. So, lo and behold, I know the job, I know what's expected of the position, and nothing against my opponent, but the concern is the votes that's been cast in Atlanta has been in the direction of leadership and not the district. And the inexperience or understanding of agriculture, along with selling his business a year and a half ago and selling his home and his land 2 or 3 months ago. So a lot of concerns. And the biggest concern is redistricting, reapportionment coming up 3 years from now. So you can't go into that process in a position where your rep could actually take an appointment or a position at Atlanta. Especially, we saw that here in Wayne County, and this is Wayne County's opportunity to be made whole, and I've made that commitment and been devoted to that ever since, that process took place. But I went through the same thing back in 2011 with Tatnall and Evans. The consideration, we had 5 different maps that were looking to try to divide Tatnall because it just doesn't have a huge population, and Evans. And if you lose representation in the House, you're pretty much left to lip service from elected officials. So it's very critical that we hold on to a House seat to have that kind of representation and that kind of pressure in the Senate as well.
You said your opponents voted for lost the district. Can you get any examples of that?
Absolutely. Back in 2011, there was a statewide T-SPLOST referendum on transportation needs, and the communication that was given from the state was if you didn't pass this in your region, you could not come back for 3 years, and your funding for your transportation needs would not be met if you didn't pass the regional T-SPLOST. Well, 2 regions in the state passed it, and we passed it, and Atlanta didn't. So 2015, they came back with an overall statewide transportation tax that was $1.9 billion its first year. And my opponent actually was a co-sponsor and voted for that measure. So that double taxed our area. It actually takes over $400,000 a year out of Tatnall County that goes into that slush fund for Atlanta. I haven't seen the numbers for Wayne, but my understanding from a couple of commissioners, it's somewhere in the $300,000, $400,000 range as well. So we're being double taxed because of that. And the process should have been to push back and say, look, we did what we were told to do. We passed this regional tax before, and here y'all are wanting to tax us again, and position us to receive more of the money that was coming out of that proposed bill. That didn't happen. Instead, we rolled along with it and did whatever we were told, and now we're suffering because of it.
This seed, what all area does it cover? And what all counties? Is it just a portion of Wayne, or is it all Wayne?
It is. It's at the riverfront. It's the best fishing areas, but I always joke about, but it's Highway 169 all the way down to Gardai, the north it's very similar in nature to what we are across the river. We're just divided by the river. But all of Tattnall is in the district and all of Evans is in the district. And that was largely part of my fight in 2011. They had 5 proposed maps where they divided those counties in various ways. And I just, it made political sense for me to go along and do what was wanted, but it wasn't right for the area and for the counties. The reason this is important, if you elect a bad representative or someone or an attorney that's looking for a judgeship or something along those lines in the metro area, it's not a big deal. Your neighbor elected a good rep. Down here, you've got 1 rep for 3 counties, and you got to have an advocate that's going to look at every measure and read every bill and push back when it needs to be pushed back on. I've been labeled in the past as a no voter. Well, the only times I ever voted no, it was detrimental to my district or it was totally against the principles of this district. And, every session that was around 20%, lowest around 17%, highest was somewhere around 23% of the time. So and then you can look at my record as far as not missing votes. I missed 12 votes over 4 years in the legislature. I have, over the last 10 years, one of the most consistent records of not missing votes of anyone that served in the legislature. So, my record was doing what was best for this district. And we earned the respect of my colleagues in Atlanta. And when I could fight for them, we fought together. And when I brought up the concerns of this district, they listened.
It's a mad dash because it's going to be decided on May 22nd because both are on the Republican ballot. No, early voting starts Monday, so, how do you get around the district and what's your message when you speak?
Well, this is not like a normal campaign. When I ran for Congress, everyone that I represented supported that, and overwhelmingly. And I had to go into foreign lands and try to get past the, well, you were an elected official, I don't want to listen to you, kind of mindset. And this isn't that case. This is, everyone in this district has had representation by me and my opponent. I served for 4 years, he served for 4 years. So they have a clear distinction between our records. And I don't think you'll see my record challenged at all in any votes that I've cast for this district. So, the voters of this district have to decide what kind of representation they would like. And, I had to make sure that I'm doing my job, going around making sure that everyone knows why we're doing this. And it's been very well received. So, my thing is this. A lot of people see elected office as this bright, shiny house on the hill. Even candidates do. When they get sworn in, first thing they start doing is trying to figure out how to get reelected. I don't see it that way. I see it as a burning building, and I know the job. If you send me in, I know how to do my best to control the flames. But we're at a disadvantage in South Georgia, and if the voters choose to go a different direction, I love what I'm doing in my life right now, and we're going to continue doing that every day. So it's just an option for May 25th for everybody to have a choice.
Okay. Again, like I said, we ask candidates all the time, when you go in the voting booth and you get the ballot, and why should they vote Delwas Dutton?
Well, the main reason they should vote for Delwas Dutton is because I'm from here and I'm going to remain here the rest of my life. Atlanta has nothing to offer me. I'm not looking for an appointment. I committed early, before any of this campaign really got started, to everyone that this is not about me and this is not about a political career. And, it was very easy for me to say that I'm going to contribute the $17,000 salary to the charities that make up these counties that are, that we're working with my private business, trying to strengthen these charities. We're actually partnered with Skylark now, that used to be CareNet, trying to strengthen these local charities in these communities, because it's not about what benefit it's going to give me to be in that office. The only reason I'm doing this is to fight for where I want my children to grow up and to work and to have an opportunity to live their life as well. I don't want them leaving and moving from Tattnall County or South Georgia. If they get an opportunity nearby, that's one thing, but I want to do everything I can to fight for growing and strengthening this community. And I've committed myself to that since I ran for office in 2010. As people have seen, when I started all on Georgia immediately after the congressional run, it's all about making sure everyone knows what their local government's doing, their state government, and strengthening the businesses and promoting the children in these schools to where they actually have an identity and a view of themselves that they want to come back home to. So it's being very successful. I love what we're doing, and we're in 41 counties now around the state, so it keeps me busy, but it's still the focus that I'll still be focused the exact same way in the legislature, fighting every piece of legislation to make sure it's best for not only the district but the state as well. But so anyway, it's I also committed in this early on to making sure that everyone knows every vote I cast and why. With the technologies we have, you can put it out on social media, you can put it on your website. So there's no excuse for this district not knowing every single measure that I'm voting for and why I voted that way. So that way they can confront me when they see me at a restaurant or they see me at a ball game or something along those lines, say, hey, Delvis, you really need to think about this before it comes back to the house, kind of thing. So
excuse me, for folks who don't know you, Delvis Dutton, there's people move in and out, and, some people pay attention, some don't. Tell us, where you live, a little bit about yourself, your family, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. I'm from Glenville, born and raised. I went to Pinewood, graduated Pinewood Christian Academy, went to Georgia Southern, focused on business management with emphasis on logistics because I was working at UPS at the time. And at 22 years old, I didn't want to move to Jacksonville and go into management as I was being poised for. So I went back home and still working at UPS. I started a well drilling company from scratch and loved it. I absolutely loved the job and the families that I serviced. Did that for 16 years. 2010, ran for office and was elected state representative. 2014, I saw a serious consideration of need for the 12th District. Nothing against Congressman Allen, but a man worth $32 million from Augusta, there was no way that he was going to do what the southern 16 rural counties needed. So I took my record from Atlanta and jumped in that race. And it was nothing against the incumbent in that situation, but there was no way he was going to hold on to that seat, and we needed representation in this southern area of the state. So we came close, but
it's kind of like the state of Georgia,
Absolutely.
Yeah, from Macon south, it's like, hey, here we're down here. Well, the Atlanta area gets all the attention.
Well, there's legislation in Atlanta has no consideration, very little consideration for rural Georgia. I mean, the voting population in the House and the Senate comes out of the metro areas. We all know this. You get 5 or 6 bad apples in Gwinnett County, it's not a big deal. But in the South, if you don't have an advocate, they're going to skip right past you. They're going to just take you along for the ride. And we've been seeing that. So one thing that I am very committed to, as y'all probably understand from my business, is pushing for broadband and internet service in this community, because it's the cart and the horse kind of thing. Industry does not come here because we don't have the infrastructure. Well, we can't get the companies come in with infrastructure because we don't have industry. So it's how do you get that done?
And how do you get that done?
Well, I think it's you gotta, in any problem, you got to go back to where you started and figure out where you went wrong. And we never started with broadband because it didn't exist. So you got to look at comparables. Look at electricity. When electricity was invented, you didn't have it in rural areas. So how did you do it?
That's the reason why the rural electrics.
That's right. Developed. So you develop these co-ops, and these co-ops are in position now to do the same thing. And there was a measure in the legislature that was pushed through, and it failed in the Senate. But that, in my opinion, is where the future is.
But didn't President Trump sign a bill in the last year, had to be in the last year, making it easier and putting more money into in this area for the rural parts of the country?
Absolutely.
So we can expand broadband in rural areas so they can grow economically like the metro areas?
Absolutely. And you don't have to look very far to see the impact of that. I mean, and it goes to the same thing that we're talking about of how critical a House seat is and how Wayne County needs to be whole and have the opportunity to elect their representation. They need that opportunity again. But the reason I say that is you look at your neighboring counties that can't elect a House seat or a Senate seat again, and you look at the deficiency that they have with broadband and the industry just not going to those counties. So it's very important to these rural communities, especially with what we have going on with the ports. We're poised to be in an exceptional position down here if we get the infrastructure right.
We are getting questions in here through text, but we always mention the fact that when we have our guests here who are running for political office the first time, it's basically a meet and greet. And the next time that we'll have y'all on, we'll open it up to questions and folks can, get your opinions on different subjects and so forth. But we just don't want to start off with that each candidate we've had in. We let them explain who they are, why they're running, and let them talk about that. Next time you're on, we'll read the questions.
Absolutely, and I would ask all the voters to research our voting records. Do your homework, and this is a very important race. It's nothing personal. It shouldn't be personal. It's about the voters and their choice and their form of representation that they desire. So, I would love to have everybody's consideration, love to have their vote. And, if they ask around, I think they'll find out that I'm going to do what's right for Wayne County.
Well, Bob, you going to ask them the question you always ask every candidate at the end?
I just did.
Oh, you did? Well,
you already answered that question.
Okay. My brain must have been reading the text messages up here
So
at that time.
now we get to talk baseball?
You want to? Yeah, that's what's on everybody's mind today in Wayne County is baseball. First round state playoff action against Bainbridge this afternoon. We begin our coverage at 4, Bob?
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
I tell you, it's been fun to watch. We've covered a lot of games with y'all side by side, and my little boy's become a huge fan of Wayne County sports, but we listen when we can.
All right. Well, Delva Stutton in here this morning, candidate for House seat. What's the number?
157.
157. And it's just amazing. The early voting, you said, Bob, begins on Monday, doesn't it?
Monday.
Which means we're 3 weeks away from the primary election.
That's right.
3 weeks. All right. Appreciate you coming in.
Fellas, I appreciate the time. Always a pleasure.
And look forward to talking to you again.
Absolutely.
All right. WIFO 105.5 FM in Jessup, Big Dog Country Radio. And let's see here. We'll have more of the world.